Welcome to another episode of College Town Talk. I'm Jonathan Frank.
And I'm Shan Stout.
Shan, I am so happy to be back with you after a little bit of a hiatus, and you've had some very big news since we last put out a new episode. You were named to Cookeville Lifestyle Magazine's 2024 list of most influential people, and you were the magazine's cover star. And so for our listeners that don't know, the magazine, we talk about it a lot on this program. It's quarterly. We're a distributor at Tennessee Tech. I know you all are at the Visitors Bureau. People can pick it up free in the community. But they named, I think, maybe 12 people to the list this year. We had our director of athletics at Tennessee Tech, Mark Wilson, our former vice president for student affairs, Mark Burnett, and you, but there's only one person on the cover, and it's your photo on the cover. So well deserved. I want to ask you though, because you've known about this for a little while and had to keep it a secret. And you love to chat. It's what makes you a great podcast host. So what was that like, having to keep it under wraps?
Okay, I would have started at the beginning. When I first got the call, I thought my staff was pranking me. So you have to understand, that's how unbelievable it was when, Chelsea Dartez, who of course is the owner of the magazine, she called and said, "Hey, Shan, I just want to let you know, you've been chosen as one of the most influential people. And FYI, you're going to be our cover." Well, my staff, they cut up with Chelsea all the time. And I thought they have like bribed her to call me, right? That's all I could think of. And she's like, "No, Shan, I'm serious. Like, you're going to be the cover." And I'm like, who is on this list that I would be the cover? And then did you see the people in this magazine? They're amazing people. So the fact that I was even in the running to be one of the 12, one of a dozen inspiring people was already more than I could handle because, I'm the person I felt like in the magazine would be like, "Okay, this is our 812th episode of Cookeville Lifestyle. So in this issue, we're going to have the last dozen people in all of Putnam County. So I'll be on that list." I never dreamed of making this winter issue. So they did tell me a long time ago. And I couldn't even tell my husband. I couldn't tell my family. I especially couldn't tell my smother. She would have leaked it to the whole world. And it felt really bizarre to have that knowledge behind the scenes. And Andrew Buckner, who wrote the article, I mean, what a great guy. But it took, like 7 people, 2 hours to get me looking like that. So it was for the cover. I felt really, really pretty. They were just precious. And I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore, Jonathan. So it
Well,
took a lot of effort and talent.
it is so well deserved, and we got a chance to be at the launch party, and I got a chance to speak with you there, and congratulate you and Mark Wilson and Mark Burnett and all of the great honorees this year. But so happy for you, and just want to congratulate you on that. There's only one cover star for the Cookeville Lifestyle Most Influential People list, and it's you. But we are joined on the show today by some other pretty influential people too.
Absolutely. Now, first, we're talking to Tennessee FFA president and current Tennessee Tech freshman, T. Wayne Williams. Now, if you've never met T. Wayne, he grew up in Woodbury, but now he's making his home right here in Tennessee's College Town as a Tennessee Tech Golden Eagle. What a guy and what a personality. He's also a 4th generation farmer with a serious passion for all things FFA. And he's even got to spend time with a famous country music singer at the recent fundraiser. And he's going to tell us all about it.
But first, we're talking with a local TV news legend, Emmy Award winner and proud Tennessee Tech journalism alumna, Candace Clift. Now, Candace has been the morning anchor at WDRB in Louisville, Kentucky for more than 20 years. But before she became one of Kentucky's most beloved broadcasters, she was here in Cookeville, writing for the Oracle, editing the yearbook, and serving as Tennessee Tech's student body president. I cannot wait to talk with her.
Oh, I can't wait either. So many questions. So let's get right to today's interview. Up first, it's our conversation with WDRB morning anchor and Tennessee Tech alumna, Candace Clift.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. Today we are speaking with the queen of Louisville morning television and a proud Tennessee Tech journalism alumna, Candace Clift. Candace has been waking up Kentuckians for more than 20 years as the morning anchor of WDRB News, Louisville's Fox affiliate, and she's been on the air even longer than that, first joining the station as a reporter back in 1997. Over her quarter century in television news, Candace has racked up numerous awards, including being named the 2012 Most Admired Woman in Media by Today's Woman magazine, the 2023 Integrity in Journalism Award from the Kentucky Baptist Convention, the Best of Louisville Award in the Morning Television Host category from Louisville Magazine for 6 straight years, and multiple Emmy Awards for breaking and continuous news coverage. During her years at Tennessee Tech, Candace made a name for herself as a co-editor for the school yearbook, an on-air personality for WTTU, part of the editorial staff for the Oracle, and serving as student body president. Outside of her on-air reporting today, Candace is also an adjunct professor at Boyce College, a proud mother of 3, a sports fan, an avid reader, and cyclist. Candace, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
We're so happy to have you here today, and we want to talk about your years in Cookeville, your advice for aspiring young journalists, and so much more. But let's start with the fact that you've worked at this same station, WDRB, for more than 25 years. And I feel like we don't see that kind of longevity and commitment to the same workplace as often these days. It's such a milestone and a testament to your rapport with your viewers and your colleagues. But I imagine it's also been an active decision on your part to stick around because I'm sure you've had other offers over the years. So talk with us a little bit about your job and what has made you continue to stay all these years later.
You know, when I came to Louisville in 1997, the idea was that I would be here for about 3 years and then I would try to move to Nashville. My family is in West Tennessee and my husband's family is in Lebanon, so just east of Nashville. And we had all our college friends, even some of his high school friends were all around the Nashville area. So that was what we thought our path would be. And I had to get my foot in the door somewhere. And thankfully, I had an opportunity here in Louisville. One of the unique things about this is that most of the time in TV news, you just get whatever job you can get right out of school. And when I was coming out of school, you would be lucky to be in a much smaller city. So I had friends who made fun of me for even applying for the job in Louisville. And I said, well, you can't win if you don't play. So all they could say is no, I'll just give it a shot. And I ended up interviewing at WDRB when all we had was a 10 p.m. news. We just did a 10 p.m. news nightly. So the other local affiliates here called it the Country Club of News because we just didn't have to turn stories constantly all day long for multiple newscasts. So I came here thinking we'd be here 3 years and gone. I had some wonderful mentors here at WDRB. It is a family-owned station, which is unusual in media. We're not owned by a big media conglomerate. We're owned by a family company that has a few other media entities, but not a lot. And I thought at first that might be a hindrance, and instead it has been absolutely wonderful. We have autonomy. We can do a lot of creative things. They will invest money in our station. So anyway, I got some experience. I started off reporting nights and weekends. Then I moved to weekdays, and I got to a point where I thought, okay, there's really nowhere else for me to go here. I'm going to have to move somewhere else. There was nothing available that I could do in Nashville at the time. I was looking around for some other opportunities. And about that time, they decided to change our morning show. And they asked me if I would do it. And the rest is history. And I have absolutely loved it here. Louisville is a lot like the Nashville area. It's a little bit smaller, but it has all the great things of a big city without a lot of the headaches of a big city. It's a very affordable place to live. You know, we have arts and sports and all those things, but I'm really happy with where my kids are in school. So then it became this community that I was part of, that I knew a lot about, and we were happy with where our family was. So why was I going to move somewhere I could make twice as much money in a bigger city? It would cost me twice as much to live there. So I really don't get ahead, and the grass isn't always greener. So I stayed here, and it's just been a wonderful place to work. So that's part of the reason I never wanted to leave. Newsrooms are notoriously dysfunctional, and mine hasn't been. We've had some tremendous leadership, and it's been really fun to grow and be creative here.
Candace, I love that story. And I love that you relate to doing what's personally best for you, because more is sometimes just more. And I have lived a little bit of that journey. So I relate to that. And I think that students that might be listening, that's a good lesson learned for them to hear that, you don't always just go over the biggest paycheck doesn't always win. It has to be a combination of factors. And you have to, lay out that cost of living as well. And that's very, very smart. And I think a lot of times people don't think that through. So I appreciate that view on that. And you should be the director of tourism for Louisville, because I mean, as director of tourism here, I just want to let you know, we also have a fabulous experience here for people and the quality of life. But I want to go to a story that I heard about you. Just to let you know, I'm very happy and excited to tell you that we have a wonderful dining scene here now. Especially, the West Side has lots of wonderful businesses and restaurants and shopping and all the things. But that wasn't the case necessarily in the early 1990s. And I remember what it was like then. Things were a little bit different. And in fact, you recently shared a story on the air of how you and your husband shared a first date at a not so fancy dining restaurant here in town. Can you share with our listeners that story, and maybe share a little bit more about your memories from your years here on campus?
Sure. My husband and I met at Tennessee Tech, and our first date was a lunch date at Applebee's. So as the song Applebee's on a Date Night, that still works for us. But that was a big deal because up until that point, Cookeville had been dry. So there was no alcohol by the drink, and they had just passed it, which allowed a restaurant like Applebee's that has a bar to open. And I wasn't even going for the bar, but it just allowed a lot of variety that Cookeville had not had to that point. Before then, we had El Tapatio, and we could go get Mexican, and that was about it, really. I don't know if the Scarecrow Inn is still open, but that's where we had all our little formal things for my sorority. So I remember going there. That was the fancy restaurant, but not a lot of options. And then once that liquor by the drink passed, obviously it expanded options. But Applebee's at the time, I mean, that was like a really nice first date. It was better than Wendy's.
Absolutely.
Right down the road. But let's see. I met my husband through some mutual friends, and we laugh because when I ran for student body president, I ran against one of his fraternity brothers. And this was before we started dating, and he actually was campaigning against me. We kind of ran into each other and said hello, and I was like, oh, that guy's kind of cute. So we always joke that if you can't beat them, join them. Anyway, I have such wonderful memories from Tennessee Tech. I'll be honest. When I looked at colleges, it was not number one on my list. And then when I ended up there, I absolutely could not have had a better college experience. It was fantastic. And I tell people, even here in Louisville, to look at Tennessee Tech. I'm like, it's one of the few colleges that's in that mid-range of not feeling so small that everybody knows your business, but not feeling so large that you get lost. And I think it's really hard for kids to find something that's bigger than 2,000 or 3,000, but smaller than 25,000. And I think Tennessee Tech is that sweet spot. I was really actively involved on campus. I grew so much in so many different ways there. And I just can't say enough good things. And then the journalism program at Tennessee Tech, I have to give a big shout out. We had 3 professors when I was there. I don't know how many are in the program now. But those 3 professors absolutely molded my entire life, my career. I would not have gone to graduate school where I did without the guidance of my professors and the knowledge they shared with me. I owe my whole career to them. Hicks Stubblefield, Earl Hutchison, those guys, and Russ Witcher. Those were the 3, and they were phenomenal.
And Dr. Witcher is still at Tech, I'm happy to tell you. And I had him for a class as a student, and I relate to your that description of Tech as kind of being just the right size. We interviewed a student on this podcast who called it her Goldilocks school. And I said, I'm going to steal that because it was, not too big, not too small, but just
Yeah.
right. And that was certainly the case for me. And, you talk about the journalism program at Tech, and there are students in that program today who are looking to your example and your success with hopes for what they can accomplish in their own careers. So what would be your advice to those aspiring journalists? And maybe just to take that a step further, is there a piece of guidance or direction that you wish somebody had given you when you were first starting out?
So I'll go to your first question, to the second part of your question. I think in learning to be content, because there's always this feeling that I need to work for the bigger station, the bigger newspaper, the bigger magazine, the bigger whatever it is. And that's not always the case. I think you need to find some place where you have a good work-life balance and then put everything you have into it. I thought I wanted to be a network correspondent when I was in school. And then I met one and I asked him about what his day-to-day life was like. And when I really started digging into that, I thought, wait a minute, I don't want to be away from my family for 2/3 of every month. That's just not what I desire. So I think the advice, maybe nobody said it explicitly to me, is just don't get caught up in the title. Do the job you love. I think if you find work you love, you can be happy anywhere. But don't get caught up in the title, because I don't think that's the most important thing. And then let's see what I learned that was most useful. I think my advice for young journalists today is be a good writer. I think so many people are caught up with TikTok and YouTube, and presentation is important, don't get me wrong. But if you are not an excellent writer and you don't have a good knowledge of your subject, people can see through the presentation part of it. And I think they're forgiving of mistakes in your presentation if they feel like they know what you're talking about. But I don't know that they're all that forgiving if they feel like you're just a presenter and you don't have that knowledge. And as a journalist, people need to trust you. We have a really important profession. And I think especially with local news, that's one of those things, people can't get it anywhere else. So I think we've got to be reliable first and foremost. And that just comes with knowing your subject, just putting your whole heart into every story you do.
I completely agree with that. Truth and intelligence in journalism is a superpower. My daughter just graduated last year from the journalism department at Tech and loved it. She just started this past week what she calls her first grown-up job. So she says, yes, she says adulting is hard, and she's commuting to Nashville and all the things that go with that. But really, Tech gave her a strong basis, a strong foundation to build on. She said, I was so afraid I wouldn't know what I was doing when I got in there. But she said, all the questions they asked me, I had strong answers for because I was prepared. And so it was very exciting to see, someone so young start taking those steps forward. And so I think the fact that, what you're saying, you're basically knowing your skills, honing your skills, sharpening those skills. It is very, very important, because I know in our job, we have to see, do people have strong writing abilities? Can they tell a story? It's not just the top, flaky level, getting it out there. You have to have some depth to it and some accuracy. So that's kind of important across the board in almost every profession, but especially journalism. Now, Candace, this is my favorite part of the interview, and I'm glad that Jonathan threw this ball to me. It's time for a few rapid fire questions. So you're going to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I'll try.
Okay, no pressure. All right. Favorite celebrity or public figure you've met as a journalist?
Can I have a couple?
Oh, absolutely.
Muhammad Ali knocked my socks off. I got to meet him very early in my career. And also early in my career, I had the chance to interview Walter Cronkite at the Kentucky Derby. It was a brief interview. He was a very gracious, kind man. And I have a picture of me interviewing him, and I absolutely treasure it. I mean, the most trusted man in journalism, and I got a chance to meet him. So
That's
for me,
amazing.
I don't know, that would be everybody's favorite celebrity. I've interviewed some actors and politicians, and I've interviewed an astronaut. I met Buzz Aldrin, but Walter Cronkite was the pinnacle for me.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, let's backpedal to Muhammad Ali. because I know this is rapid fire, but I just want a little bit of backstory there. What was that like?
Well, his health was already kind of declining when I met him, but I had told him about how my dad watched him box, and my dad would tell me stories about Muhammad Ali, and he kind of smiled, like gave me a fist bump. And even that was really special because he was kind of a legend, I'd heard through my dad, and then a chance to actually meet him, knowing what influence he had as a humanitarian, even above being an athlete, was incredible.
Oh, I love it. Now, next, the best part about being a morning TV news anchor is?
I'd say getting to help people start their day informed, but also with a smile. That's what I love about morning news. It's a great mix of both.
Well, and I'll tell you too, to add to that, I had a dark part of my life where things were not going well, maybe 7, 8 years ago. And the morning news anchor, it was very important to me. It was almost like they were a companion to me in the morning to keep me from going down the depths of my mind where things were not going well. And it was very important. Like, I felt so compelled of how important that piece was, with that uplifting news in the morning with a friendly person, that I sent them a card. I mean, like, to thank them, because you just don't know, but there's such an impact there.
Well, I have people all the time who say, they stop me in the grocery store and they say, I just want to tell you that you guys feel like family to me. And that is the biggest compliment I could get. They let me in their house. Some of them let me in their house while they're like getting out of the shower, which might be a little weird if you think about it, but they feel comfortable enough to let me come in their house every morning. And that's an honor. And then when people say, oh, you feel like family, or they come back and say, oh, the other day when you were talking about this, that, or the other, and then they give me they feel like they're part of the conversation. So that's a really special thing.
Well, after my experience with that, I also heard later that senior adults and shut-ins, that's a very important part of their day, because they may not have a companion. They may be a widow or a widower, and that's someone that they can listen to. And so you're actually contributing to mental health, which is very nice too. Okay, next up, this is the doozy. What about the hardest part of your job?
Oh, my alarm clock, 2:45 a.m.
Oh,
every day. Never gets any easier. I've been doing this almost 28 years, and it never gets easier. You don't get used to getting up early. You get used to functioning tired.
I feel that in my soul. Okay, your most memorable or unexpected live television moment?
Oh, wow. Had a lot. We had a light explode. I thought I'd been shot or something. I didn't know what had happened. We once had, as a guest, was the guitarist for the old hair band Poison, CC
Yes.
DeVille. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, yes.
I thought we were going to have to catch him with a net. He was like, bing, 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 bing. He was like all over the studio. He's out of control. I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm trying to think of some others. We just had so many, I think. The Turtle Man was on our show one time, and he like decided to pick me up and dip me like we were dancing, but I didn't know that was coming. So it's kind of a panic moment. All kinds of bizarre things happen on live TV.
I had a bug fly in my eye on live television one time and tried to just deal with it, but
no,
it was not pleasant.
I mentioned meeting an astronaut. I interviewed Buzz Aldrin, and ironically, a fly buzzed around his head and even landed on his forehead in the middle of the interview. That's why it was so memorable.
It's hilarious. And it's just like a visual pun.
Yes.
Now, finally, finish this sentence. If I was not a journalist, I would be doing blank.
I think maybe advertising. I love commercials.
Great at that.
I love commercials. I will pay more attention to commercials than I do to TV shows. So maybe advertising, or maybe teaching, because I do that now. As an adjunct professor, I teach a couple classes in communications. I teach media law and ethics, and then I teach writing for publication and public speaking and storytelling. And this is like this new love that I've discovered. I absolutely love teaching college kids. So maybe I would just do that full time.
Those are some lucky students that are getting a masterclass in storytelling straight from the expert. So that is pretty cool. Candace, we like to end each interview on this podcast with the same question. And that is, what is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
I just feel like every success I have in my life, all the good things, all started at Tennessee Tech. I met my husband at Tennessee Tech. I gained leadership skills at Tennessee Tech. I gained incredible knowledge for the field that I work in. I just feel like all good things in my life go back to being at Tennessee Tech.
Candace, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk. We've really enjoyed this.
I have too. Thank you so much.
And for our listeners, if you're in the greater Louisville area, you can catch Candace on the air every weekday morning from 5 to 10 a.m. And you can also find her on social media and follow her reporting online at WDRB.com. Welcome back to College Town Talk. Our next guest is the 2024-25 Tennessee Future Farmers of America president. Now, he's a fourth-generation beef production farmer, a Woodbury native, and he's been interviewed by national media on agriculture issues, and somehow he's only a college freshman. Of course, we're talking about Tennessee Tech's very own T. Wayne Williams. T. Wayne, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
Okay, now T. Wayne, I know that agriculture is obviously your passion, but it takes more than just passion to be named the statewide FFA president. That is such an honor. There are more than 33,000 Tennessee FFA members, so I'd say the competition was pretty steep there. So my question is, how did you get chosen for this role, and what has that meant to you personally?
Absolutely. So my full name is Troy Martin Wayne Williams. Troy, who was my great-grandfather, started my family's beef operation, which then passed down to my grandfather Wayne and is now currently being ran by my father, Martin. So 3 generations worth of agriculturalist in my name. I was born into this industry, and entering high school, I was always told by my family, we need to join FFA as this organization could change your life. And throughout my 4 years in high school, I competed in over 17 FFA career development event contests where I truly found a love for the members and for what this organization stood for. As I got to learn so much about agricultural skills, but also helped me in my leadership components as well. And I knew that I had a calling to run for state office, and how I was chosen as the Tennessee FFA state president is at our convention in March. We had a nominating committee of 12, and they picked the state officer team. And overall, I worked 3 years and 2 months of my life before that, preparing for that week to run for state office. And I'm very grateful to represent the 33,508 Tennessee FFA members, and can't wait to continue to serve them and make an impact on Tennessee FFA.
Well, I love how you know the exact count, 33,508, very specific. And I would say, as the Tennessee FFA president, I think it's probably safe to say that you are a high achiever. You don't get into that role by being a slacker. So I'm going to guess you had your pick of colleges to choose from. What was it about Tennessee Tech that made this the right fit for you?
For sure. So after state convention in March, I had a decision to make, and I was telling myself I was going to make that decision to see if we did get elected to state office. Or from there, I had to pick between the 2 schools that I truly did love the most, and that was Tennessee Tech and the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. And both were great schools, great opportunities. And I remember this past spring, I went and visited with Tennessee Tech and actually sat down and had a meeting with President Oldham. And when he sat down and told me about the tradition and the history of Tennessee Tech and how every single professor wants to see our students succeed, and I actually got to sit down in some classes and see how the professors actually care about their students, and also make sure that they're connecting with them after they graduate and leave that classroom, really meant something special to me. And also having that tradition of my 2 sisters who are older than me and my mom were also Tennessee Tech alumni now in the College of Engineering, and it felt like home. And I can say for these past 3 months that I've been on Tennessee Tech's campus, they have continued to try to help me succeed within my endeavors. I think that Tech is a great place to be at school because we truly are preparing the next generation of leaders here in Cookeville.
Wow, he's already taken on a leadership role in every capacity. You are going to do great things, and you've already done so many great things. For instance, your organization just held its annual Tennessee FFA ham breakfast at the Tennessee State Fair. and you got country music star Trace Adkins to deliver the keynote address. That is not just a normal thing that happens there. And I understand that he is also an FFA alum. So tell me about that experience. And did you get a chance to talk with him backstage? And what did he feel about FFA?
Yes, the Tennessee FFA State Fair Ham Breakfast is one of our biggest fundraisers of the year, as it is where our industry sponsors and donors come to celebrate our association and what FFA stands for. And over a year, record attendance of 1,200 people at that breakfast, and we was able to raise $200,000 for Tennessee FFA members to continue their skills and activities within FFA. And having Trace Adkins there meant even more, as he talked about how his time in the Blue Jacket, how his time competing in FFA competitions helped him so much in his life and his career. And I think that really showed us something special as FFA members, is when we look at the leaders of our state and our country, many of them came through our organization, and it makes you feel like you are a part of something so much more. And when you put on this Blue Jacket, you truly have a family of over 33,000 people, and getting to speak with him one-on-one and tell us about the impact that he had through this Blue Jacket meant a lot to us and Tennessee FFA.
I had a chance to be at that event, and it was it was really neat to hear him speak, and it was a great event. And President Oldham actually got to give the introduction for him, which was cool.
Yes.
And T. Wayne, you and your fellow Tennessee FFA officers also got to experience a recent trip to Washington, D.C. that I know made a big impact on you. You got to tour the White House, visit the U.S. Capitol, sit in on a meeting of the House Committee on Agriculture. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, our trip to Washington, D.C. truly was monumental for all of us, as through our Tennessee FFA Foundation and our executive director, Chelsea Rose, who is also a Tennessee Tech alumni and was a winner of the Derryberry Award, she set up an event with Congressman John Rose for us to come to Washington, D.C. and tour the monuments of our nation's capital and learn more about agriculture. As we got to sit in on the House of Agricultural Committee, and coming from a fourth generation beef production operation, it was very special to me to sit on the same floor where so many issues of agriculture within our nation is discussed and presented. And also getting to tour the White House, where so many of our leaders, we got to experience what our nation is doing right now to help agriculture and to help our country. And we always say it within Tennessee FFA, agriculture is the backbone of our state and ultimately our nation. And seeing that Washington, D.C. and our leaders truly do understand that and realize that was very special to us, knowing that we have an impact on what happens in our nation's capital.
I love everything about that. I can't get over, you can just feel the generational knowledge coming from this interview. It's just running through your DNA. And Mr. Stout and I, we own a 200-acre cattle farm, and just know a little tiny bit about farming, and more on his side than my side. I just like to name the cows. So, but finally, T. Wayne, we're wrapping up this interview. And at the end of each interview on this podcast, we like to end it with the same question. So here we go. What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
There's been many ways already within these first 3 months on campus that Tennessee Tech has impacted my life. But I can say that the one thing that they truly have done to help me and see me succeed, as they have showed true passion for me in each of my classes. As within this role at Tennessee FFA, I'm on the road a lot, connecting with so many members across high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, but they can continue to check up on me each day, make sure that I'm doing okay, and that they can help me in my college classes and my academic success. And I don't feel like we get that everywhere. And I truly do feel like Tennessee Tech wants to see every student succeed and wants to make sure that they have a home here at the Golden Eagle campus, and I'm very proud to be a Golden Eagle.
Well, T. Wayne, you're only 3 months in. I look forward to having you come back on the podcast, maybe your senior year, and just see all the great things you've accomplished. Thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jonathan, those two are so impressive. We want to thank Candace Clift and T. Wayne Williams for being our guests today on College Town Talk.
We sure do. And thanks to all of you for listening. We've got one more episode before we take a break for the holidays. So if you're enjoying this podcast, would you do us this favor? Hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your friends. It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
We will meet you back here next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville Tennessee's college town.
College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.